Instant noodles are popular in Indonesia, consumed not only at home but also at roadside eateries. The staple food comes in a variety of flavors. They are convenient, cheap and tasty. Instant noodles are a quick fix if I'm hungry and there are not many food options available. The noodles can be cooked in different ways. I'm having mine dry, but I've asked for vegetables and eggs to be added to the noodles. Agus Mulyadi has been selling instant noodles in South Jakarta for the past 8 years. The 42-year-old says the price of instant noodles has gone up by more than 20% since 2 months ago. He has little choice but to pass on the cost to consumers.
Indomie pakai telur sekarang udah 13.000 Pak, gitu nggak pakai telur 10.000, gitu udah naik. Biasanya kan pakai telur, kalau dulu gitu masih kuat dijual 10.000.
The war in Ukraine, which began in February, has been blamed for the increase in instant noodle prices. The conflict had hampered export of wheat, which is the raw material for noodles, from Ukraine. Indonesia is the largest wheat importer in the world, and Ukraine is one of its biggest suppliers. Ukraine had seized the export of wheat and other staple foods essential to ensure that the needs of its people were met during the war. The country's ports are also blockaded by Russian warships. Last month, Indonesian President Joko Widodo embarked on a peace-building mission to Kiev and Moscow. One of his objectives was to convince the warring nations to free up exports of grain to global markets.
Saya sangat menghargai Presiden Putin yang tadi menyampaikan bahwa memberikan jaminan keamanan untuk pasokan pangan dan pupuk baik dari Rusia maupun dari Ukraina.
Food manufacturers praise Mr. Widodo's efforts to reintegrate Ukraine and Russia into the global food chain. However, concerns remain of a protracted war.
Tahun ini ketersediaan saya tidak terlalu khawatir ya, karena tahun lalu tanam panen tahun ini, tapi kalau ini berkepanjangan tentunya akan sulit untuk tanam baru kan. Nah, tahun depan ini akan menjadi lebih bahaya, bukan hanya harga saja tapi ketersediaan.
Activists warn against using food as a political tool and monopolistic practices.
Faktualnya dalam konteks impor gandum di Indonesia, satu perusahaan itu menjadi importir mayoritas di atas 80% impor gandum di Indonesia. Jadi dia tidak hanya menentukan produk turunan, memungkinkan kemudian juga pengaturan harga. Saya kira itu juga jadi catatan untuk Indonesia sendiri. Apa yang terjadi di Rusia dan Ukraina harusnya jadi upaya reflektif kita untuk tidak bergantung juga terhadap pangan impor.
Higher food prices have also driven up inflation to 4.35% in June, the highest since 2017.
Untuk saat ini sih saya juga ngurang-ngurangin gitu, kayak ngirit gitu kan. Dari pembelanjaan gitu, waktu di sini juga kan tinggalnya ngontrak juga. Jadi apa-apa gitu beli. Kalau belanja juga sih suka ngirit-ngirit gitu. Jadi hemat belanja.
Food prices are expected to continue to head north in the remainder of this year. For instant noodle seller Agus, he knows there is no instant fix to the Russia-Ukraine war, but he's hopeful the two warring countries can get a taste of peace as soon as possible.
We Thais love our instant noodles as well. In fact, with 8 other Asian countries, Thailand makes up the top 10 in the world that consumes the most instant noodles. And because it has become such a staple, the government has stepped in to ensure that it remains within reach of everyone in the country. Thailand is known for its countless culinary delights, but sometimes it's convenience that counts. For Angkon Wongkonhood, his interest for instant noodles began during lockdown, when he started to research the wide variety that was available, topping almost 350 different products before deciding with business partners to showcase all that assortment in a dedicated shop. What's special here is that you can have it right away, with fresh ingredients and cooking stations. To him, it's no wonder instant noodles are popular.
ก็ต้องถือว่าบะหมี่กึ่งสำเร็จรูปเนี่ยโอ้โหก็มันเป็นอะไรที่อยู่คู่สังคมไทยมานานถึงขนาดมีคนกล่าวว่าเป็นเพื่อนรักต้นเดือนบ้างปลายเดือนบ้างหรือว่าเป็นลักษณะที่ว่าคือเป็นสิ่งของที่ทุกคนต้องมีติดบ้านอยู่แล้วแล้วก็ต้องบอกว่าเราก็ได้วัฒนธรรมจากการบริโภคบะหมี่มายาวนานเกือบ50 ปีแล้วนะครับ
Now, even though rice is the main staple here in Thailand, instant noodles are essentially pantry item. For many, their cheap price is a main factor, especially for those that have fallen on hard times. Its price can actually tell us a little bit something about the country's economy. Let me explain. 50 years ago, Thailand's most popular brand has sold the instant noodles for 2 baht a pack. Let's visualize this. Then in 1997, the Asian financial crisis has forced the price to go up to 5 baht. The last price hike was in 2007 when raw material costs were going up, which puts us at the price of 6 baht. This is the price that we have until today. That is about 17 US cents. The question is, for how much longer? 17 US cents may not seem like much, but Thailand is suffering its highest inflation in 14 years, just as the country is coming out of a pandemic-induced economic downturn. Food prices themselves have risen almost 6.5% since last year. So especially for low-income earners, this all adds up. The manufacturers are feeling the pinch too due to higher production costs. Especially wheat has gotten more expensive because of the war in Ukraine, which is Thailand's second largest exporter. Over the past couple of months, noodle manufacturers are saying that a price hike is inevitable. But the government is now making sure prices remain the same. Instant noodles are one of 46 items subject to the Commerce Ministry controlled goods list, which freezes their prices to protect consumers from escalating price surges. Other items include daily essentials such as cooking oil, eggs and pork, but also construction materials and farming products such as cement and fertilizers. In June, the ministry has rejected a request by companies to raise instant noodle prices. CNA contacted some of Thailand's major instant noodle manufacturers for comment, but all of them have declined to be interviewed on this matter. However, a trade official tells CNA while it understands the industry's pains well, they need to adjust to the current situation as well.
เราก็ยอมรับว่าเรารับทราบสถานการณ์นะครับว่าข้อเท็จจริงเป็นอย่างไรวัตถุดิบขึ้นอย่างไรนะครับเพียงแต่ว่าในกรณีเช่นนี้เนี่ยเราขอความร่วมมือให้ผู้ผลิตเนี่ยใช้การบริหารต้นทุนและราคาสินค้านะครับก็จะต้องใช้การบริหารจัดการต้นทุนถัวเฉลี่ยเพื่อที่จะนำธุรกิจหรือสินค้าที่ได้กำไรมากมาถัวและหล่อเลี้ยงธุรกิจให้ดำเนินต่อไปได้
For economic experts, these kind of price controls are not the most effective tool to combat inflation. In fact, it might even backfire in the most extreme scenario.
Rather than, just suppressing price like that, why not think about giving direct support, financial support to low-income household, because then they can manage how they use the money better. Because if you suppress the price to the point where manufacturers cannot cope with that, and if they stop producing, then again it would lead to the shortage of supply of food.
As for Mr. Angkun, the instant noodle shop owner, he also can't see prices remaining the same for much longer either. As daily living costs keep rising, many Thais may have to tighten their belts a bit longer. The humble instant noodle may pop up in their diet more often, but they can perhaps take comfort it will remain reliably affordable for now.
Tokyo is bustling with people. The lunch crowd is back after COVID-19 restrictions were lifted in March, but business is not as brisk as it looks. Surging raw material costs are putting a dent in sales. The Japanese government says consumer prices in Japan are not rising as rapidly as in other industrialized countries, but services and goods are rising. Now, how are restaurants in Japan coping? Slicing, cooking these colorful vegetables is Aya Kawase, chef and owner of this restaurant near the business area of Tokyo. But Aya's heart is heavier than usual, even as she prepares the cheerful-looking dishes. Domestic ingredients have become pricier, and the prospect of getting hold of imported goods such as foie gras and truffles this summer onwards is not clear.
玉ねぎ、トマトとか、あとは洋風のものは 1.5 から2倍近く上がってます。輸入物もやっぱり業者さんが円安なので仕入れをちょっとストップしてる業者さんも多くって在庫がある限りみたいな感じになっている場合もあるのでそこでまた値上がったりしてます。
The Japanese economy has been in deflation since the mid-1990s. Aya's menu prices have not changed much since she opened the restaurant in 2006. Her 5-course lunch starts at 1,890 yen, or just under $14.
It's a very affordable price, so it's very nice. I'm very happy to find this kind of thing.
This gentleman, who has his lunch here several times a week, thinks the restaurant should raise prices.
このクオリティでこの金額っていうのは私は安いと思うのでだいたい 10% ぐらいは上げてもそもそものやはりインフラの費用が上がっているのでやっぱりその分は当然上げるべきだと逆に思いますね。
But Aya is unsure. Higher prices could drive away customers. She has been surveying her regular customers on whether to charge separately for coffee and dessert. The restaurant had barely recovered from the months-long state of emergency triggered by COVID-19, during which she was forced to close her restaurant on and off for months and was only able to pay her rent and keep the place with government subsidy. COVID-19 also forced her to turn to delivery service. But the cost to deliver the meals has also gone up due to higher gasoline prices. To avoid transferring the cost to customers, Aya's only staff delivers the boxes to the courier service counter rather than wait for it to be picked up. A Nikkei survey in June found that nearly 3/4 of restaurant operators in Japan plan to raise prices in the current fiscal year.
Government has a tool to put a cap on gasoline prices. They could be possibly managing the electricity or power consumption. But in the meantime, there is no plausible or reliable instruments to put a cap on food prices. But if you compare with the United States or Europe, still 2 to 3% inflation is much lower and much moderate.
Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said some of Japan's largest companies have promised a wage hike of 2%, the second highest ever, and higher summer bonuses. But economists say higher wages are not seen across the board.
I would say at the marginal level, the wage increases might be quite visible, in particular for young people who get a new job in services industry. That would be the case. But in the meantime, the salaries or wages of existing workers will not easily to pick up because of remaining low productivity.
On average, wages in Japan have been staying flat for the past few decades. Consumption makes up more than half of Japan's GDP. If consumers become cautious about spending due to rising prices and decide to save more, Japan's economic recovery could stall.
Doors are about to open at Richmond Food Bank in southwest London, and volunteers are getting supplies ready. Canned goods, coffee and other staples are packaged up to feed a family or individual for 3 days.
It's amazing, really. A country's rich as ours, people have to rely on food banks. It's insane.
Inside, having a cup of tea, we find Peter Murphy, an ex-soldier who served 4 tours in Afghanistan. He says the rising cost of energy means he has to think twice about everything he does at home.
Use what you have to use. Instead of having 2 showers a day, you come back from the gym, have a shower in the morning, and that's it.
There's an increasing need for food banks even here in Richmond, a leafy and wealthy suburb of London.
We've seen the demand this year going up 15–20% and rising. We're sort of preparing for that to increase month by month.
This hub is part of the UK's largest network of food banks run by the Trussell Trust, which distributed more than 2 million food parcels in its last financial year, more than any year before the coronavirus pandemic. And in a recent survey, low-income families polled said they feel less financially stable right now, squeezed by rising prices for petrol, energy and at the checkout. For them, food inflation hits even harder because they spend a greater percentage of their income on essentials like heating or food.
That is why the inflation rate that we look at, so say it's 8 or 9% at the moment, yes, that is a broad average figure, but the actual effect is completely different for different households. So those low-income households are really facing the squeeze.
Fiscal support should be timely, temporary and targeted.
The government has intervened indirectly, promising every household £400. That's almost $500 to help with energy bills this autumn. But that may not be enough, as the cap on how much utility companies can charge per year for energy bills could rise by almost $1,000 at the same time. And with the coldest months of the year just around the corner, when that rise comes in, some low-income families could have to choose between eating and heating this winter.
The cost of food is increasingly eating into American paychecks. Food costs rose 1.2% in May, a year-on-year bump of more than 10%. Elizabeth Stone says that's starting to bite. While applying for law school, she's working part-time at a restaurant. Earning $11 an hour, she relies on tips, but those are diminishing.
We directly depend on tips and money related to volume. So when that volume is decreasing, whether it be someone ordering 1 drink instead of 2, or again ordering takeout instead, our wages are, affected. We get less tips, and then we are making less money.
To help cut costs, Stone says she's become more picky about where to shop for certain items, and she uses an app to find stores offering discounts on expiring goods.
They'll get you a lot of food for maybe $5 or $6, which is phenomenal, like a whole grocery bag's worth. So I've been really utilizing that.
Rising prices have forced many in the city to turn to food banks to help supplement their weekly shop. At Seniors Day at the La Jornada food pantry, only those aged 60 and up are served. They've had to limit their capacity to 1,500 people due to a surge in new clients.
We have seen an increase of people applying for food, over 1,000 seniors in the last 3 months. So, and this is only this community. We have other 10 pantries that all of them are reporting the same numbers.
And it's not just students and seniors that are feeling the pinch. According to the non-profit City Harvest, 1.5 million New Yorkers are food insecure. That's a 36% increase compared to pre-pandemic levels. But faced with rising food prices, stocking food banks like this is a growing challenge. This food bank has been forced to cut the amount of food they give to clients by 50% compared to last year.
Since before the pandemic, my cost of food has gone up 90%. It's almost double.
Many families across America are finding it hard to make their dollars stretch. They got some relief last year when US President Joe Biden expanded child tax credits as part of the American Rescue Act to help families respond to the economic impacts of COVID-19. Eligible households received up to $300 per month per child for the final 6 months of 2021. According to some estimates, food insecurity among recipients dropped from 26% to 20% during that time. But Congress failed to extend the expanded program when it expired at the end of last year. With inflation surging, states across the country are reporting rising levels of food insecurity. But while there remains a need for the government to lend a hand to those struggling, economists say there's less appetite for public spending.
If you say, therefore, we have to help people now, we have to give them more money to spend, that creates more inflation. So, right now, governments are all being forced to reduce spending and to cut back on the money supply.
With the US Federal Reserve raising interest rates in a bid to stem inflation, many analysts feared the country could dip into recession. That could pile on the pain for many already struggling to feed their families.